Thank you.
Speaker.
In Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Can I start my final contribution on this bill by acknowledging the families and the people with disabilities who have been fighting for so many years to get some progress in this area. I want to acknowledge those who will be better off slightly as a result of this legislation, and I want to acknowledge those who will be left out by this legislation, because it will be a particularly sad day for them, because the government gave them hope that finally the solution was going to be found, and then they pulled that hope away by bringing this bill to the House, which is, some people have called it half-baked. I think it doesn't even make it to being a third-baked, actually. It's a very, very poor solution. It's not even a solution to the need to support families who are looking after people with disabilities, who make that commitment 24/7, 365 days a year for year after year after year after year. A commitment that those of us who don't experience that cannot possibly imagine. We cannot possibly fathom what it takes to look after someone with that degree of care, with that level of need and everything that goes with it. Mr Speaker, the other aspect of this bill has been the astonishing way in which the government has been prepared to trample on democracy and human rights. This regulatory impact statement is starting to become quite famous, actually. I think it's more famous than the bill. The risible riz, as Catherine Delahunty said. There's a song related to the Wizard of Oz in there somewhere, which maybe might be worked on later on tonight. But this really is an astonishing display of how poorly this government considers the need for openness, transparency and democracy. Because the regulatory impact statement is supposed to be the advice that we MPs can receive, impartial advice, so that we actually know what the bill is about. And we can take that and we can take it to Select Committee, and submitters can have a look and they can come and tell us what they think about it. Well, of course, there's been no Select Committee process, which actually makes this document even more important when in the absence of a Select Committee process, because members of Parliament need even more information than what we would ordinarily get, because we don't get the opportunity to hear from the people that the bill will actually affect, to hear what the impact will be on them. And this is what we get. This is what we get from this arrogant government that thinks it knows best and that it has the right to trample on democracy and on people's rights. And I mean, it's bad enough that we even have pages like this in the regulatory impact statement, but what's even worse is that the bit that's blanked out the most is the section titled Risks Arising from Other Agencies' Policies and Risks Associated with Enacting this Legislation. Surely, members of Parliament, the only people in New Zealand who get an opportunity to vote yea or nay on a bill, should have a full understanding of what the risks associated with that legislation are, Mr McIndoe. Surely we at least should get a full understanding of what the risks are, but we do not even get that, and that's just the approach that this government takes. Who cares about democracy? As long as they can get the politics right and convince people that they've done the job and actually settled this issue. The second bit, of course, is the human rights factor. So what this bill does is it says that people can no longer take their concern to the Human Rights Commission. Could up until yesterday, but from today onwards, no, can't be done. So people no longer have the right to actually refer cases to the Human Rights Commission to ensure that there is no continuing discrimination. But of course what we know is this bill actually establishes a new discrimination by saying to people that if you were lucky enough, if you were smart enough, quick enough to get a complaint in before the 16th of May, you're okay. After the 16th of May, that right has been taken away from you. And I think, so these aspects of the fact that it's not being extended to all the families, that there's some arbitrary measure of what high need actually is that has not been fully explained in this bill. That'll be something, I suppose, the Minister will calculate at some point in time, and it'll be calculated based on cost, not on need. And the fact that these rights to refer to the Human Rights Commission have been taken away from people. The fact that carers will be paid less for looking after a family member than they would if they were looking after someone who is not a family member, another discrimination that is built into this legislation, just makes it all the more disappointing. It would be one thing if people's immediate reaction to this bill was that it was a bad thing, that it was introducing something that was anathema to the opposition, that was something that people hadn't been seeking. But it's even worse, Mr. Speaker, that it purports to be a solution to a problem that has been around for 20 years. That it was introduced as something that should be hailed in the disability sector, that the families should be really pleased to see. And we know that simply isn't the case. The little bit of response that we've been able to have, because we haven't had the select committee process, the only opportunity that people impacted by this bill have had to respond has been to email and call MPs through the day. And the response we've had has been exactly that initially they thought this looked quite good, but then as the hours went by, it just looked worse and worse and worse as people started to grasp what the bill was actually about. And that, Mr. Speaker, I think is sad and an absolute travesty, because people expected more. And the worst bit about it is just how little...
Order. The House is suspended for the dinner break. I will resume the chair at 7 p.m.